Welcome to the event today. My name's Hannah, and I'm one of the volunteers today, as along with Gretchen, who's behind the counter right now. Who has been to Recirculation before? Heck yeah. All right, awesome. And has anyone been to Word Up, our other location? Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, if you're new here or new generally or coming back, thank you so much for being here. Recirculate or Word Up first started like 15 years ago, and we're currently located at 165th in Amsterdam, which is our main bookshop. This location, Recirculation, opened in 2020 after a longtime collective member unfortunately passed away due to COVID and left his entire collection to Veronica, who is the general coordinator of Word Up, to basically with the mission of recirculating all of his possessions back out into the community because he had a vast collection of all different types of art. So in that mission, that's our goal too now, to basically, at a pay-what-you-wish price, basically recirculate records, books, whatever you have, back into the community to support accessible literature and media for everybody. So without further ado, oh, and I guess I should say also that, so that means like everything on these walls, except if it has a little sticker, is all pay what you wish, so please feel free to browse after the event. And without further ado, we have Francis, and we're really excited for the event. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm going to introduce Roberto from Get Fresh Books.
Thank you, Roxanna. Thank you for being here. Thank you for speaking with Francis about his amazing book. Yo me crié no lejos de aquí. Nací muy cerca de aquí, en Hamilton Place, y después de ahí nos fuimos para New Jersey. ¿Verdad? Sí, tengo que hacer así porque no estoy seguro, no estoy parado. Para mí, cuando yo conocí a Francis, lo conocí porque leí su libro El Alto. And I had also read Ubre Ubre. And I realized something immediately, that Francis understands how people talk. He understands how Dominicans here in New York talk, how we speak to each other, how we speak in our homes and how we speak on the street. And that immediately drew me to his work. And when I saw him acting, I was like, this guy's an actor too? What? Like, what can he not do? Which was incredible to me. And then he's very talented as an actor also. And so I said, if I ever get the chance to help bring his art to a larger audience, I will do whatever I can to do that. And it took us a little while, but we got it together and we did it. I started Get Fresh Books in 2016 because as I was looking around at the people who were being published, the people who were winning big prizes, I said, this is great, I'm happy for them, but there's more opportunities out there. This gatekeeping means that only this one person gets to have the prize. This one person gets to have the book. I didn't like that. I wanted to publish books written by the people that obviously who look like me and the people from my community, but also the people whom I was writing poetry with, who was predominantly a lot of women who were not being published, a lot of people from the LGBTQ plus community, obviously the Latinx community, the Afro-Latinos in particular, but then older people too, people in their 70s, in their late 60s who were not being given opportunities in publishing because of their age. So there was a lot of reasons why we needed a new press, and that's why I started Get Fresh Books. So I will invite you to follow us on Instagram if you don't already, at GFB Publishing. See what we're up to. We're doing a fundraising campaign right now because it takes money to keep the doors open. And something else about our press is we don't charge submission fees. And so that's something that's very radical and revolutionary right now because everybody charges submission fees, okay? But I don't want to do that because if you submit to 15 contests and they're $20, $25 a pop, right? How much money is that? I know, I was doing that. I was spending hundreds of dollars submitting. And again, I'm not throwing shade on anybody. I'm just saying this is how I want to run my publishing company, okay? And so now we have this sliding scale where if you can, you give, et cetera. But I hope you'll check out our website. I hope you'll donate. I hope that you'll continue to support Francis as he navigates moving through the world with his new book, right? in English, yes, because he writes in Spanish also really well. So something that's so dope is that if you read anything here, if you translate it in your own head, it makes sense. And I love this part, right? I took an aptitude test, and it came out that I'm worthless. Hey, stop it right there. You know how to open bottles with your teeth. Oh, yes, that's true. You see? You are full of worth, right? Cogí un examen ayer y me dijo que no valgo nada, compadre. Oye, para ahí, tú sabes de tapar botella con los dientes. Oh, ¿verdad que sí? Tú no ves que tú vales mucho, right? You see, like, I can just hear it in my head. So, like, you know, I love and appreciate that, right? So anyway, I'll leave it to Roxanna to take it away and to Francis to take it away. Thank you for being here, for supporting Francis, and support Get Fresh Books. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. Thank you for being here. I'm very, very excited about this conversation. I've been thinking about it for a while. I wake up thinking about it, and I've been going to bed thinking about this book. So I'm gonna introduce Francis real quick. Francis Mateo is a Dominican writer and multidisciplinary artist whose work moves across poetry, short fiction, photography, theater, and performance. He's the author of Ubre Urbe, El Alto, Tropical York, and Sacarle Pétalos al Pavimento. He holds a BA in English, literature, an MFA in acting, and his work explores memory, migration, identity, and the urban life. Good afternoon again. My name is Roxanna Calderon. I am a writer and editor, and it's my pleasure to be in conversation today with Francis Mateo to speak about his new book, Embers of Exile, a Poetic Exodus. Give me a second, sorry. This collection moves between the Dominican Republic, New York through memory, migration, family, community, Greek mythology, and the rhythms of the city life. This book feels like a journey through nostalgia of the Dominican diaspora, the desire to return, and the experience of adapting while, como uno dice, con un pie en la mente allá en la isla. It is my pleasure to welcome Francis Mateo. Congratulations for this new book. Vamos, aplaudan. Esa energía, manden energía para acá. My first encounter with Francis was seeing him at a play, and then I found out he was also a writer, and I read El Alto, and it was a beautiful experience, and some of his other works. But reading Embers of Exile has been mind-blowing too, because I think my brain doesn't need that translation, so it's like I'm reading in Spanish. It's so beautifully well done. So, Francis, in Embers of Exile, you reimagine Philoctetes through the Caribbean, Dominican, and New York lens, taking an ancient wound and making it walk through Dykeman. At times, it feels though as you are doing with Dykeman and the Dominican diaspora what Sophocles did with tragic figures, turning an individual wound into a collective question. It also felt that the book, throughout chapters, traced like a Philoctetes-like arc, from departure to injury to community, isolation, and return. Was that structure purposely done, or it happened to you, it emerged during the writing process?
Thank you, Roxana, for the question. And thank you for being here too as well. Thank you for being there. Yeah, so thank you so much. The structure was always there. And the interesting thing about it is, like, I read the Sophocles play, and because a lot of things happened at the same time. I was reading Homeros from Walcott. I was reading Sophocles, Philoctetes, and then I was walking on Dykeman Street, and this guy, there's a poem actually about him, it's called Tangerine Stride. This guy that was dragging his, the Crocs, they were orange Crocs that he was dragging, and he was just singing. He was singing very off-key, because I didn't know what he was saying. I thought it was as a lament, but it was a song. It was a very popular song. And I was just like, wow, like I saw it as a play, I saw it as a movie unfold in my head, and I was just like, I can't. And I read 4 verses from Homeros, and I had to close it down because I was just like, oh, I know what I have to do. Because coincidentally, he talked about Philoctetes too in those 4 verses as a fisherman. And I was like, oh, no, I cannot continue reading because then I'm just going to be like all affected by it. And it was post-pandemic. So, but yeah, it had to have that. It had to have those chapters. It was to have those chapters. It had to have those acts, like the act 1, act 2, and 3, and 4, and then kind of like that. It was. I had to put all the sheets on the floor, and then I was like, old school putting it in because I couldn't see it in the computer. I couldn't move it, and I needed to physically move it to see where each one fit. I was never 100% happy because if I see it again, I'm like, oh, but what if I move this one here? It's a thing that I think we all have, that we're not really at peace with the piece, and we just have to let it go and breathe by itself.
Now that you speak about it, I could see it as a play, definitely could see it as a play, and this is where your theater, the Francis Mateo theater guy, comes out, I think. Why in English?
I wrote an essay for Spanglish Voices about why I wrote the book. And to tell you the truth, I don't know why it was in English. I mean, I think it was the language chose me instead of me choosing the language that I needed to talk about. Because I remember that the necessity was to write it in English as the pandemic was winding down. I was like just thinking in English a lot because I was by myself a lot looking at the window. And then when my kids went to sleep, and it was just me looking at the window, looking at the projects that I could see at the end, and the lights were on. And for some reason, it was just English. I cannot explain to you why it was English, because my other books are in Spanish. They have like a shower of English here and there, but this one needed to be needed to be that experience of like past. But well, there was a friend of mine who told me that this book is for her was a coming of age story. And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Because I have the trilogy of El Alto, which is like everything that happens in El Alto with people talking in El Alto. And even here, I have a section which Roberto read from it. It's called Small Talk on Nagel Avenue. That is just conversations that I hear along Nagel Avenue. There's always a lot of conversations happening, and then I just like hear it. And they're kind of like transposed to it. Like I just fit them in a way that you can read it and see the whole picture, but they actually happen like the way you read it there. That's what's fantastic to me.
I'm like, que no siga hablando, que está respondiendo las otras preguntas. I want you to read one of the poems to us, please. And this poem is beautiful. It's called Allá, Opus 3.
If you can hold it. But the thing is, it's called Allá. It's because there's a whole section that I had in other books concerning like Allá being like over there. But over there is more than being a place, more being than the Dominican Republic or the city where I'm from or whatever it is. Allá is a more in a conscience thing. That's a question, she said. Okay, so I'll read. But yeah, the Allá, Opus 3.
Josefina te diría, lee el poema, coño.
And I like Opus 3 because I like classical music, and I like the fact that in classical music you have like, yeah, that work was lost, and it's Opus 25, and you're like, really, you wrote 25 things, and then this is the one that was alive. So Opus 3, Opus 3. Allá, Opus 3. Adverb of time and place. A living cloud where memory resides a la mode. Amid the flames of Antilles, nostalgia's ember aglow, a fervent longing. Ablaze memories as succulent as chicharrón, time's bittersweet passage unfolds. Enriched with solace, which ought to have been eternal, free from the exactitude which came to pass. Action. I choose action. Always actions alive in the now.
That is so beautiful. Francis, when you write about Allá, are you trying to recover the place you left or the memory that has been recreated?
It's all of the above. It's all of the above, and it also has space for new things so that you can put it in there as well. It's the construction, which is nostalgia. It's like construction of what you think that was at that time. But if you go back right now, it's not the same way. But it's something that your mind created for you. And it's also the past. It's how you think it was, how it was, and all of that stuff. And allá is that comfortable space, that nook that you go to. And now that's what I like to call allá. And in the other books, for example, in El Alto, they talk a lot about allá. Like there's one of the small talk that he says, like, are we drinking enough? They're like, how? Like the way we drink over there? Like allá? Just like, no, but keep going. We're gonna get there. But it's just like that whole thing of like, will you ever be able to fill it? Probably not. Because it's an infinite space.
Yeah.
It's better than the clouds.
And it's like that constant longing, right? And can an immigrant ever truly return to the same place?
What is the saying that says, like, if you, it's the same river that doesn't pass twice, but never, right? It's never. So we're that river, just pasándole por arriba las piedras.
At any point throughout the book and from the voice of the speaker, did the speaker, like your voice here in the book, felt that once coming back, if there was a time of return, things were going to be the same? That immigrant thought of, like, when I return, like the constant return, thinking that things are going to be the same.
This is interesting because when you go back at the beginning, you feel, your body adapts to the whole situation and you feel like it's the same. It's like, I never left, but it's not. But then you realize after a couple of days that, no, you're not. You left. You will have 5 days over here and you're like, ooh, I want to go home already. Because what is home now? Yeah. That's the interesting part of it. You're there and you're like, I can really fit into this. Like what happens to me when I go back to DR, people joke that they say that I'm from there. They don't view me as a person who is from the States or from New York. And that is so mind-blowing to me. And people go like, nah, what are you talking about? You're from Alma Rosa, whatever the thing is. But to me, that's phenomenal. And I'm like, yeah, because I feel at home when I'm there, and I see the sounds, the smell, the everything, like I understand it, but I'm not the same person. Having an understanding about it it's something, but like being the same person, it's impossible. Because I think we're lucky that we are not the same person because we hopefully evolve. Hopefully.
Thank you. I would like you to read another poem. This is one of my favorite poems in the book, and he was talking about it at the beginning. I was looking at him like, don't answer the question. Tangerine Stride. Where, pa?
Ooh, look at that. So dark. Tangerine Strides. It has some lyrics from a song by Franco De Vita. It's page 26. Phylacteries over on Dykeman, clad in orange Crocs. Right foot dragged sharply against the pavement. Hansel on a quest to find himself in the meaning of an embutido, the life expectancy of a fifth. A familiar tune lingered on his lips. Took a minute to decipher. Sé un buen perdedor, el mundo no cambiará. Near the coconut stand on Post Avenue, a scooter abruptly ran him over. Yet his song endured, a star poised to confront its final bang.
Isn't that beautiful?
But it's interesting because the song doesn't go like that at all. And he just kept singing that for like the whole stretch of Dykeman, and I was like, what is he singing? And I follow him because I was like, I need to know what he's singing. And when and I follow him, and I was like, oh, that's Franco de Vita. Wow, that's. And that to me was mind blowing.
Yeah, that whole situation is mind blowing. Also, how I think that's when I started to see, like Philoctetes and this, Greek mythology and all that idea in the book, which was mind blowing to me. How you were able to connect, like both things. But it also made me think about the vulnerability of the body and the resilience of the mind, the resilience also of the immigrant mind.
Is that a question? Was that?
Yes. How you got into that place, creativamente hablando, of connecting those two things together, but also seeing that quick moment, had all this magical thing that developed, right? The guy with the Crocs, the connection to Philoctetes, the resilience of the body, of the mind, how vulnerable the body is.
Thank you for that question, because I'm always at awe at artists when I see them. It's like, if I see a painter, I'm like, how did he see that? How did he go ahead and went like, because I don't see anything. I just see the blank space. But there's a moment that you see things and things connect. And it's something so effortless that you go like, oh, it makes sense. But when you are from the outside and you're not the person having that thought, you're like, how did he see it? How did he saw that painting? But I just saw a tree, and he saw like a unicorn right in the tree, and then, so it's that complex, and then that to me, I'm in awe. So I don't know how that works. I just know that when it happens, it's just a beautiful thing. It's just a beautiful spark. I think that's what we follow all the time, just to have that spark, that beginning. I think that when we end the stuff, it's like, okay, so let's just go and see if we can get that again. Because that's what really makes us move and makes us content with what we do. It's like when we're like, oh, this is the idea, I see it, let me put it up. It's a puzzle. But I'm always amazed at that. It's like, how do you do it?
Thank you. I'm going to skip the next question because he answered it. For me, I think like we could have like an all-day conversation about this poem, because as short as it is, it's also very profound. It looks simple, but it's very profound in so many ways. And it also makes me think about the epic dimension of the immigrant, and how sometimes like there are things we don't see because we normalize the entire process of immigration, which is something that we were talking about, how immigration has always existed. It's not new to a generation. Since humanity was created, there has been like movement going on, even animals, displacement, but also how epic, especially with the Dominican diaspora and all the stories behind, how epic, like that whole story. If you pick somebody on the street and you ask them, hey, how you got here? You could be mind-blown about like the answer that could come out. Was some of that reflected in the book, and how, based on your own experience, the experience of others?
Definitely my experiences also, but also the experience of others that are close to me are also my experiences. For example, my wife's experiences are my experiences too, because I live them with her. And your friends, the talks you have with people, the talks you have with different people, especially in a place like New York, that you can just talk to anybody from anywhere. And then you find that it's the same thing. Like we have the same needs, the same wants and needs. At the end of the day, it's the same wants and needs. It's just from a different POV. But yeah. Go drink some water. Get some water. She's gonna drink some water. And we're gonna take this pause here so that she can drink some water. Buy the book. We are here at Recirculation. Word up 2.
Because I think it's important for you to experience this book also from the voice of the author himself. Could you please read a poem from Community Chronicles? No, tan separado.
Oh yeah, you gotta make
Sí. no, eso está al final. No. Where did the sticker go? Yellow. Oh, because I didn't know the poem. One second, please.
Nocturnal cascades stumble down Sherman Avenue. Clock strikes 4 in the morn. 2 choices linger at hand. Hail a green cab or beckon another pint. Fastest choice ever made. Prompted by a tingling sensation, a voice murmurs, "Go on, go ahead, that's the intention." Butifarra sold by the yard. Drunks clamor for their liver to be cooked to a medium rare. The corner card becomes church for the all-nighters. After hours cane pedaled, liberated from sleep and dreams. The night drips into dawn. The night drips.
Can you please show it? Thank you. Also, when you buy your book, because you're gonna buy it, we're gonna make sure you get a book before you leave. You're gonna see how the structure, how beautiful it is inside, and this is one of those poems that it's very visual. So this entire chapter, I saw how the individual story gradually became a collective one. Neighbors, musicians, workers, family members, and everyday conversations become part of every poem. How do you think, and that's the way I saw it, of the community as one kind of symphony, like a song all together?
What the community is a symphony. It's just like you have the oboes, you have the violins, the violas. I mean, everyone has, that's why the community works, is because everyone brings their own thing, and then hopefully we'll have a maestro that will take you so that we can go to the same place, and that's how, why community works. There's a lot of things that, for example, in the building that I live now, we have a community, and we take care of each other, and there's a sense of easiness when you're in it, because you're like, okay, I can do this because it's easier. If I need something, I can go to someone and they will help me with something, and if somebody needs help, I'm there to help. So, I mean, that's community. When the community works, it's because it's like that. It's because it is like a symphony. ¿Cómo se llama el maestro venezolano? At Lincoln Center, Gustavo Dudamel. You just need a Gustavo Dudamel. It's like.
Yes, we're gonna have a moment at the end for comments and questions. I also saw that throughout the book there was I don't want to say an effort, but I saw that it was important to you to preserve the Dominican speech, our humor, music, and all those themes alongside of exile and loss. Yeah, why was it important for you to preserve those things?
Well, it's important because that's what we are. It's what the baggage that we carry. It's important to be there because again, as we said before, it's just our experiences is what shape us and what gives color to our lives. So it's important that it's there because when you read it, the more local you are, the bigger it is, the understanding. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Am I clear? I don't know if I'm clear, but if the more local you are with the thing, the more everyone can relate to.
But you are doing that at the same time that you are writing about exile and loss. So you are preserving memories, you are preserving our music, preserving our speech, but at the same time, you are connecting that with the themes of exile and loss.
Well, that's what interests me. I mean, the first trilogy, I have photos in the book because I'm a street photographer, and I like to go around the neighborhood and take pictures and see how the neighborhood changes. And the photos that I took in 2011, they're like, people, that doesn't exist anymore. And that happens in New York. In New York happens that all the time. Yesterday, I was walking on 23rd Street, and there was a movie theater that I used to go because I lived on 18th Street for many years, and the building is gone. It's a huge building, and it was gone. And I was like, what? And then there was a Target across the street, and I was just like, whoa, this is shaping up in a totally different thing. So it changes, and to preserve that, and it's the whole thing of like telling stories. It's preserve. It's like, well, now that the Odyssey now is back in vogue, it's just like that whole thing. If like the Homer going to places from places, like, well, let me tell you this. There was a guy named this guy, and he did this. So it's just like preserving the story and telling all this. So it's very important.
Also very important for the preservation of our identity. One of my favorite parts in the book is the small talks. It's like little vignettes. And I saw it as, throughout the book, you are walking, down the street, but then either you will hear a conversation, like you said, or you will stop because it has like the picture of a business. Yeah. So it's like, you took a rest. Yeah. Yes, throughout. So I saw like throughout the walk, or I was dropping into a conversation, and for me those are beautiful poems too, built through fragments and overheard voices and visual space on the page. How does that form reflect the rhythms of the neighborhood and the experience of the collective memory?
Well, it shows you how we speak, because one of the things that I was really, and the other day we went to Patterson because I wanted to see the waterfall, because William Carlos Williams I really loved his poetry, and he had a book called Patterson. And what I wanted to do with El Alto was something similar to Patterson. It's a bigger task, because I wanted to put a lot of other stuff in it, and I didn't. The way that I wanted to, it's not, but it's there. But I wanted to do something like that. And the imagists, especially William Carlos Williams, to him was important how people talk. And to me, it's important how people talk, how we talk right now. It's like our phrases, what matters to us at the moment, so that when we read it in a moment later, we go like, oh, this is what we talk. I mean, there are certain words, for example, in the Dominican lingo, there's a word that timacle. Nobody uses that anymore. And being a timacle was just like, it's un timacle. That was like a good thing. It's like, that's a good dude right there. And that stuff has changed throughout the years. And there's songs too about it. What is the name of the Bonnie Cepeda song? El Chico Fever. Being a Chico Fever. And I'm assuming that's because of Saturday Night Fever, the movie. So people wanted to be like a Chico Fever. They wanted to be like John Travolta. A Chico Fever, a fever guy, which was like, this guy on the street is like dancing. It's like being fly. But it changes, and the stuff that we're talking right now, then to me that was important, so that we can go back and be like, look at the stuff that mattered to us at that time, and just kind of see a contrast to see if it was worth it or not. If it was like, did we really lose time just talking about that when we could have been talking about something else? But I wanted to see what was important to us, and that's the thing with la trilogía del Alto, de El Alto, Ubre Urbe, and Tropical Joy. It's just like that whole thing of like how we talk. To me, that's really important, because it's very musical, and I think it's really funny. Because one of the things reading the writing the small talk on Nagel Avenue is because I thought they were funny. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't care if anybody doesn't think it's funny, but I think it's funny, so I'm just gonna hopefully one day, one guy, one person will say this is funny, and then I will be validated. But yeah, because that's the only thing you can do is just create your stuff, and then. Yeah. There's one guy, and I'm like, yeah, my dude right there, yes. So, but because you have to write, because you have to write this stuff, you have to do this stuff, because that's one of the things that we trap ourselves going like, nah, maybe it's not gonna work. Well, you don't know. Yeah. You gotta do it.
Yeah. Also, what I like about the small talks that I feel are como un descanso throughout the profoundness of the poems, and I think that was beautiful. Also, like allowing the reader to like take a pause, like ríete un poquito, and let's go back to it, to the journey.
Yeah, again, and that also, it's like theater. It's like the dumb shows. Back in the 16th century and 17th century, they used to have like this, they used to call dumb shows. It's just like what mattered was, for example, they were doing the Scottish play. They were like, this is too heavy. You got to have some guy just like doing flips around there and falling so that people can laugh a little bit. And then when he leaves, then we can continue with Lady Macbeth washing her hands with, washing the blood of her hand. So I like kind of like those dumb shows. I think that stuff is there. I'm thinking about it now. It's just like, maybe that's what it is. But at the moment, I was just writing.
Absolutely. Isn't that beautiful? Could you please read to us Doomsday Prelude? Está marcado. Gracias.
Doomsday Prelude. 1. Between Dykeman and Nagel, I brace for the apocalypse, or perhaps one of the falls of Attila advancing swiftly. 2. The rainfall has ceased. Still, sirens persist. Ambulances and fire engines wailing at the 4 crossroads. 3. Trains approach, their carriages bare like spectral ships docking silently. Their presence eerie, moored at the desolated station. 4. Streets echo with emptiness. Pigeons, in their desperation, find no one to defile. Wander aimlessly on the railings in a forsaken city. 5. Days slip away like flowing water, slipping through my fingers. It doesn't feel like the world's end. No initial trumpet has reached my ears. 6. I scrub my hands raw, meticulously tidy the house. Dust settles, and so does my mind. How do I quell the ceaseless anguish?
Aplaudan. For me, that poem, when I read it, and some of the poems on this chapter was like, okay, finally somebody wrote about the pandemic, how I needed it to read it. Because it had a mix of things. So this poem, and I don't know what is that, why it keep happening, sorry. This poem captures early day, and some of the points in the book capture the days of the pandemic with a remarkable restraint. There's no dramatic declaration that the war is ending, just sirens, empty streets, ghostly trains, and the quiet rituals trying to help us regain control. What drew you to portray the pandemic through ordinary, almost cinematic moments rather than to the whole crisis itself?
Well, that was a crisis too as well, because that's what we were living. The stuff that you say like that is the stuff that was on TV. That's stuff that is made for us. But when we were living that, it was just that. It was just everyday things. I mean, I used to see it from my window. That was the only escape I had, is just watching through my window. And then I had a bike, and I was able to bike the whole of Manhattan because there was no cars, and it was amazing. But it was scary too because there was no one outside. It was just me on the bike, me on a white bike, and I was like, oh God, I gotta go home. I don't know what's gonna happen if an alien invasion or something. But the thing is that's how you lived, like that, how everyone lived it. What the news said, it was just how their interpretation of how the community was living, and it's complicated because it's what I tried to do was just like what I was seeing. I was just trying to do a chronicle of like what I saw in Washington Heights, in that Dykeman area, like that crossroads. That to me was just what was important because that was what I was living. That was the ecosystem. I don't know if that explains it,
But when we read the poems, we even like regardless of the news and whatever was going on, when we read the poems, there's also this a poetic calmness, throughout that state of emergency that we were living in. How were you able to achieve that?
I don't know, writing it. I just wrote it and I was like, okay, let's just let's see how can I transpose this into the page. So I don't know. I mean, in technicalities, I don't know. I just wrote it and it made sense to me, and I saw it. But it was a need to chronicle what was happening in the area. And how can you do it without imposing something on it? But just as you saw it, and it's like, that's the way I'm going to describe it. Instead of just imposing whatever thought I had, whatever fears I had. And I have plenty of fears because of all the things that were happening, all the things that we didn't know.
Thank you. Throughout all the questions and this conversation with Francis, we have been taking a trip through every chapter of his book, and now we happen to be at Sugarcane Musings, which is the last chapter, the last act of this wonderful book. Could you please read to us Sugarcane?
Oh, sugarcane, the unwavering sphere, timidly peers through suspended clouds as the fleeting December day descends into a profound abyss of night. In the crisp air, leaves pirouette like skilled performers. I tread carelessly through the park, pandemic-free, perhaps fear-free, relishing the satisfying crunch of dry leaves beneath my feet. My thoughts aching to Ulysses navigating the vast sea, wander aimlessly in a seemingly endless exploration. Is my longing to return or to stand resolute and resist? A handful of leaves aloft. The redolence of Yautia Coco abruptly arrests my steps. I wonder which feverish memory triggered that sweet scent. An invisible man climbing the slope returns home. The winds whispered. No longer that a castaway with a fifth of rum tucked under my sleeve. I am that who, plagued by doubts, uncertain of my true place, stand like a sugarcane stick, bearing the weight of my uncertainties.
Thank you. I have a few questions about this poem, and one of them is, you speak about my longing to return to stand resolute and resist. What does that tension reveal about the difficulty to know where actually home is?
Is it Mother Courage that says, like, I am from the place that my kids are fed? So Bertolt Brecht, right? So I think that gets pretty quick. Is like, what is home? Hopefully something tells you. Each individual will know what home is because of how they feel and the things that they can achieve. So I think that's a personal thing, and that's why it's good to ask that question, like where home is, like really home. So I don't have an answer for it. It's just that it's like those questions. It's like I have plenty of questions, not answers, and hopefully they'll ease up. But I don't know. For you, what it is?
Well, for me, I read once in a book that you never truly belong somewhere, like your home. You don't have an actual home, so you don't have somebody buried in that place 6 feet under. So I guess Dominican Republic still's my home, as I don't have nobody buried here. That's usually how I think about it. So you also mentioned Ulysses, and why did you bring Ulysses into that moment of uncertainty?
Well, Ulysses is a great example. I mean, he left, and then he's like, how can I return home? And was he the same person when he left? So we don't know. All the things that happened to him in his way to go back. And because I can't, is that whole thing. It's like Philoctetes. I mean, he's in this island just like crying with his foot, and that's why the guy, Dykeman, with his foot too, like being dragged, is like, he was just crying, but this guy was singing. He seemed happy, off-key happy, but happy nonetheless.
Singing El Perdedor, like maybe Philoctetes was feeling, but he didn't have Franco de Vita. But it also, now that you said that, then you were talking about Ulysses, it made me think about all the Ulysseses we have. You know, all these immigrants that could be right placed into that story.
There's one of the small talks en un alto that says, estoy como Ulises, que allá no hay Ítacos que me recuerden. And then the other guy says like, well, yo no sé quién es Ulises, pero eso me dio durísimo. So it's just like, he's saying like, yo, I'm like Ulysses, there's no Ithacans that remember me from where I'm from. Like when I come back, it's gonna be to an island that is gonna be totally different. And the guy that's next is like, yo, I don't know Ulysses, but that shit hit me hard. So it's that thing of like,
you know, it's like, well, my people remind me back home, you know, like Juanita, right? When she goes back, like, are they gonna remember me? After this journey through exile and memory and return, today, you know, especially after writing this book, what does return means to you?
it's not answered yet. I don't know. I don't know what return means.
So we're gonna have a second, you know, part.
I don't know. What is return? What is? And I think that's one of the things that the book is just like opening the question of like, what are these things? And so I don't know what return is. And do we need to return?
Yeah.
Is it a necessity or is it, it's really a difficult question. It's really a difficult question because it's like, what is a return? What are we gonna achieve by returning? And it reminds me of the whole thing of like when people say like, oh, I'm gonna retire to the Dominican Republic, and then they spend a year in the Dominican Republic and they are back in a jiffy. Yeah, they're like, no, I'm not gonna be back. We're boom, back to the States. So yeah, what is return?
Yeah. Is it maybe not returning on the physical sense, but also like that like you turn into like maybe I don't need to return, like that conscious reflection of this is where home is.
But it's very interesting because it's the physical presence because we are always there. It's in us. So it's just like, is it in us? Is that a form of return? Or is that a form of always staying there? I don't know, it's too philosophical, I don't know.
Well, What Remains, it's one of the other poems in Sugarcane Musings. Can you please read it to us?
What Remains? Exiting a theater performance, a friend phoned me from a southern town bordering the brave Caribbean Sea. How are you? Down in Barahona, seeking the remains of Enriquillo. With a blend of Castilian Spanish sprinkled with the Cibaeño dialect flurries. Why don't you come down? In the theater district, the wind picked up slightly. The sun retreated unhurriedly towards the west. I strolled a mile through Hell's Kitchens or whatever moniker suits the landlords, real estate lords of the city. While eager to dive into history, there are still others remnants demanding I attend. As I journey home, A familiar face catches my eyes amid the crowds. Not a single one reaches out to touch my shoulder, leading me toward my desired destination. No, because it reminded me of the Peruvian poet, that the reaching out of the touch of the shoulder.
So this poem, I had to read it quite a few times, and then I realized they were both looking for something. And also, the poem begins with an invitation to come down to Barahona and ends with a familiar face in New York who doesn't reach out. What for the speaker, for you, changes between those two moments?
What?
What changes for the speaker between those two moments? Between the cold and, seeing the familiar face that doesn't reach out.
Well, but it's actually, I want to know what changes. What do you think changes? Because you are the reader. So I want to know. I really want to know.
In your opinion.
No, my opinion is right there, written. So.
No, we're not going to have an argument about this.
Because I want to know. Because I really want to know what changes for you. I mean, because he's having this conversation, and does he want to go to Barahona to find Enriquillo? And then he's on the train station, walking home.
But what is home?
Yeah. That's the answer.
What does that, what it means to return? Because I think this poem could lead you into so many ways. It could be like the coldness of seeing a familiar face, but not having that touch as well, where you make that point of decision of like what I'm looking for here when I could be looking for things over there, with faces that might recognize me, but also give me that touch.
Or do you want to have that?
Yeah.
Or don't you? What remains?
You have to read the book. This is a CTA. This is the CTA poem. So before we close, I know we have some questions only two that were difficult to answer, but this last one that it's like an open call for us also as well to reflect once we read the poem. What do you hope remains with the reader, with the people that read Embers of Exile after they read the book?
Well, I hope they enjoy it, and I hope they go on a trip. That's basically it. It's just like read it, enjoy it, have a good time, tell people you read it so that they can get it too. Yeah, identify with it. Get some more books from Get Fresh. So yeah, I just want you to have a great time reading it. And it's sort of like when you go to see a movie in a movie theater, that you're just sitting there and it's just 2 hours with hopefully no phone, no anything, just like going at it, and then at the end going like, okay. So yeah, that's.
Now that you said identify, is it important to you as an author that when people read your book, they identify with the story they're reading?
Well, hopefully you'll identify with certain things, not with everything. I mean, you only hope to catch that very. It's for example like people, you always say like, oh, if people like 2 verses from that poem, I won. And it's true, right? It's true. If they like 2 verses, you're like, yes, I'm winning, because something is happening, and that's important.
Thank you. Well, Francis, thank you for this beautiful conversation. It has been a pleasure to speak to you and to get to know more about the process and your book. We want the audience to participate with some of the questions or comments. Any questions, any comments?
What's your water bottle number? Go ahead, Lalo, please. Yes. I don't know how long
Thank you. Thank you. Can you hear me? So Francis and Carla and their children moved into the building that I moved into in 1960. And it is just a delight to have this family here. we are building, I grew up in, with people from who came from all over the world because they had to. Either if they stayed where they were, they would be killed, or if they stayed where they were, they could not earn a living, or some other. You know, New York is a world-class city. And how in New York do we respect the cultures that are within us? For instance, some of the people in my building, if you shake their hand with your left hand, you are doing wrong in their culture. The left hand is not the hand to shake with. I wanted to give stuffed animals to a family. I asked the father, he said, every stuffed animal except a dog, because in my culture, a dog is a filthy animal. I didn't know that. So we have to be kind neighbors. I don't step on your toes, and you don't step on mine. You go where you want to go, and I go where I want to go. And that is New York to me.
Unless you have orange Crocs on, then step on me because I want to talk to you, you know?
Okay, gracias. Bueno, encantado de estar aquí contigo y en esta puesta y circulación del libro. I wanted to say that now that you mentioned Homer and Ulysses and the whole thing, it is true that we feel here like Ulysses, but not also thinking about how people remember us back in the island, but also it's like a Dominican Ulysses, plotting the return that may never happen. And that's is another thing on top of the whole thing, because that's how we are here. We live two lives, plotting that return. And 90% of the time, it never happens. So thank you very much for making that.
And Ulysses being the Latin for Odysseus, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah, my grandmother never learned English because she said she wasn't going to stay here long. Yes, she stayed here till her last day. Yeah, so no plan to stay, but managed staying. Ended up staying. Yes.
Huge congratulations, Francis, phenomenal poet and actor, all-around artist. And I have a question, but I also just want to preface, I think, especially now with like AI, and now the revelation, right, that AI is taking rare ancient books, cutting them up, scanning them, and then destroying them. I think a work like this is incredibly important, right, because you just from the little that you've shared with us and just flipping through it, there's a lot of memory in that. And I think there's something incredibly powerful about living in a time where I think technology, we're always battling with it. That's not something that is very different from our parents. And then before, like, technology is always something that we've had to figure out how to exist with. And I think especially with AI, the threat of forcing us to forget who we are, where we come from. So I just want to congratulate you on creating a book like this, because it's filled with so much memory and so much of, you know, who you are, but it is with you sharing who you are that we remember ourselves. And I think that that's really important. And so I think my question to you is, you know, I think a lot about process as an artist, and I'm curious about, you shared a little bit earlier on like you reading things that you read, that you wrote like a year before, and you're a different person when you read your own work later on. So if you could share a little bit about that. I guess not a question, but just more so like the process into the amount of time that you took to write these pieces, and just kind of sharing who you were when you started writing that, and then who you are now as you're sharing it with us.
I started writing the first poems for this, and it's because I went back on an email that I sent someone. I think it was 2021. I was writing certain poems, and I wanted to do the whole thing of Philoctetes, and I wanted to do the whole thing just as an epic poem. But then as I was writing it, things were changing. I mean, we just came off from the pandemic, so life was a little convoluted. We didn't really know left and right. I didn't. Like, I knew that I need to keep my family safe, that we need to go this way, but it was just like, what do we have? There was a lot of questions like, what do we have? Where are we gonna go with this? Where are we gonna go after this? Can we be the same person as we were like before this? So there was a lot of questions, there was a lot of concerns. And I started writing this. But then the poems themselves, they went where they wanted to go. Because it was a whole situation of like mirroring the present with the past. I started noticing a lot of that, a lot of like comparisons of like, there's a poem that I talk about something, and then I remember my tío Dionisio when he used to dress up as a mariachi. And that too, it was like, oh, because of the thing that we were having right now. It's a poem right there that says, Tierra abre y trágame. That's one of the things that he used to say when he got drunk as a skunk. He used to dress as a mariachi. He used to go out in Santiago, in Pueblo Nuevo, right in the middle of the street. Tierra, ábrete. He had a huge voice. He used to say to the earth to open up and swallow him whole, dressed as a mariachi. But when he was drunk, it was because he drank, not that he drank 2 bottles, nah. This was just like marathon. So but that to me was just like having that thing of like us in the pandemic, like everyone was just talking about drinks too. It was just like, we just need to drink. So if we are drunk, we're gonna be okay. So that was kind of like the thing. It's like, if we're pissed drunk, we're gonna be great. It's gonna be phenomenal. Now it's my one, well, it was before, now it's legal, but but the whole thing with that is just like, and I kept going back and forth on that, and then I wrote it, and it rested for like a year or two. Then I grabbed it back, the manuscript, and I was just like, who wrote this? This is great. Like, it was funny, because I was like, this is great. Look at the way this is gone. I was like, wow. And it was me, I wrote it, of course, but it's just like, I was more at peace. So I was like, oh, this is great. I think I should give it, shape it into something. And then I worked on it for another year, leaving it out, bringing it back again. It took a while. It took a while, and then I gave it to Get Fresh Books, and then they worked on it, and his team was like amazing too, like giving me ideas, and I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. And also I worked with a great editor beforehand, because I was like, I need someone to read it and let me know if it makes sense. And that's when Angie from Dominican Writers says, like, talk to Jean Berlier. And Jean Berlier, shout out to Angie and to Jean Berlier. And Jean Berlier was just like, because what I did, the way I wrote it, it was very, with the metrics, I remember, it was 12, and it was 12. Like, everything was just like super like rigid and like in this square, and then we started playing with what if we let it breathe? What if we let the poems breathe and just like find their own place? Because the whole thing is about finding something. And but it took a few years to the point, and I did the whole thing of like sending it to different places and paying $20, and it's like they were like no, and I was like, oh, a knife in my chest. But when that yes comes, it's like, that's it. You don't remember any no's. You're like, yeah, fantastic. And now people are going to read it. And I think it's a beautiful, and I found that photo in my album, and I was just like, do you think this is great? I asked my kids, do you think this is great? She's like, that's the one you got to use. That's the one. I was like, case closed. And yeah, and Embers of Exile. Yeah, like, my kid too. It looks like my kid is crazy, which I thought my kid looked like my wife.
I saw the picture and I was like, oh, this is it. But I'm not gonna tell them this is it, because I try not to strong arm writers, right? Something that a lot of writers don't appreciate is that there is something in your first attempt. there's some sauce there, okay? And even though you're doing revisions, and you're using your craft to make it better, never forget that sauce in the first attempt. And sometimes what happens is certain editors will edit that sauce right out of your work because they are trying to create a vision too as editors. Like, all right, chill. It's not your work, right? You know what I mean? And so something we always try to do is not to be too intrusive when we're editing, to let the writer's voice come through and be what it is, right? So that's kind of like, it's a two-part type of thing, right, when we're working with writers and trying to get them published. After, if that's okay. Well, you know what, it might help everybody, sure.
A lot of people nowadays are self-editing. And I read their work and I say, this could really use an editor. So what do you think about that?
So when we think about editors, some people think about proofreaders, right? Which is like, this comma doesn't belong here, this apostrophe this, that, right? If that's what you want, there's mad apps for that. Grammarly, you know what I mean? Like, there's so many apps that you could use to just correct your grammar and punctuation. When you look for an editor, what you want is somebody who's well-read, somebody who has read a lot, so that when they see what you're trying to do in your own writing, they have other books in mind that they can maybe recommend to you or explain to you and say, hey, look what this other author did here. You're close. What is it that where do you want to take this? So something that I appreciate about the book is the layers and levels of wisdom, right? There are these speakers in the poem, like in the last one, in the Sugarcane Musings, right? That is speaking with the Cibaeño, slight Castilian, right? Who's on this journey trying to figure things out and says, maybe you're on that journey too, right? But then there are other speakers telling these family stories. Like there's one in particular where, I'm gonna paraphrase, the mother tells the speaker, you're the man of the house now, and the speaker's getting, she's ironing the speaker's clothes, ironing the shirt, and the dad calls from somewhere else, and the dad is, what does the father say? He says something to the equivalent of like, shit, like, and I'll ask you to read it, if you guys don't mind, right? Then there's like that wisdom, right? That coming of age, buildings Roman kind of wisdom, but then there's the wisdom of the streets that you overhear every day. Sounds like bullshit two people are talking about instead of going to work or instead of doing what they got to do. But it's wisdom that they're sharing with each other to make it through the day. So there's all these layers of wisdom, right? There's above ground and there's underground, right? And how do you manage those two things if you've never read the Odyssey, if you've never read Shakespeare, if you've never read that person, right? I have problems with that word. And so when you work with an editor, you want somebody that has read those and can see, hey, you may not realize what you got going on here, but this is along the lines of, right? And that's what you should be looking for in an editor, not somebody that tells you, oh, these run-on sentences. I mean, there's a place for all of that, but what you go to an editor for is to bring out the work, to show you how you're in conversation with other writers, right? And how you can pick up that conversation. So hopefully that's helpful, Maybe one more before we.
Before that, I want to also give a shout out to Sharina Maillo Pozo. Sharina Maillo Pozo, Associate Professor of Latinx Studies and Spanish, and Dr. Wilfredo José Burgos Matos, Dominican Studies Scholars, for the blurs that they did for the book. They were phenomenal. When I read it, I was just like, what? You saw all of that? So yes, that's phenomenal. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I would just like to say, this is a work that speaks to everyone. It is very layered. There's a lot of hidden meaning in there that you uncover and unpack through multiple readings. So whether you're scholarly or whether you're just looking for some enjoyment, there's something in there for you, I also want to introduce this incredible writer and interviewer and thank her for her incredible questions that she asked, right? Shout out to Roxanna. And just in case you don't know about Roxanna, Roxanna Calderon is an American writer born in Brooklyn, New York, and raised in the Dominican Republic. So she had a different experience, right? As opposed to being born there and coming here, she was born here and went over there, right? Huh?
I moved there when I was 1 year old, and I came back when I was 11, only for 2 years, and
Back again.
I went back again.
Wow. Her work explores identity, emotional inheritance, and the intersection of language, memory, and migration. Her first book, La Casa de las Maletas, was published by Dominican Writers Association in 2019, and her next self-published title, Esto no es poesía, was published in January 2024. If you go to Roxana's website, roxanacalderon.com, or if you check her out on Instagram, Caldero Roxana, Calde Roxana, because it's like Calde Roxana, right? It's like Calde Roxana at Calde Roxana on Instagram. And I want to just say thank you so much for your generous time and your questions, which were incredible. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
To close on a high note, Francis is going to read Carnaval. Yes. ¿Tú quieres que la gente?
It's a funny thing, and I'm going to put him on the spot because this poem that I'm going to read right now, we created a video, and my brother hasn't finished it yet, and it looked great. I mean, I saw the clips, and it looked fantastic. I wish they put it out. It's called Carnaval. It has on the top un epígrafe que dice, y el sol de la 12 me traya los cuervos la espalda, la porquería de Luis Díaz. Prayers, raisins, and sweet beans around the corner as the heat shows its fangs during Cuaresma. Sun blast rays out of crosses on the belly button of $quarter milk cookies. The dream always to return, and it be the most spectacular carnaval. Calife, roba la gallina, tiznao, diablo cojuelo, regular folk dancing, jumping to the beat of palos, gaga, merengue, the typical kind. Sunbeams strike kamikaze style, nursing a foam cup of libation to last you for a couple of hours. Calife, calife, chant a set of drummers slapping that tight goat skin. Sweat beads slide down my brown body as I dance on the asphalt. Fingers bleed through beige masking tape. February. Carnival. My welcome back. Transcribing verses, deseos, onto a raggedy black notebook aboard the one train, a cup of coffee, contemplating, yearning, aspiring to craft a reimagined world with old memories, a brief stretch of nostalgia within a fictional future. Carnaval. Gracias.
Okay, so Francis is going to be sitting there at the table in the entrance, signing books. So please get your copy. Thank you.